Hi, welcome to this World Hydrogen North America on-site interview. This World Hydrogen North America is brought to you by World Hydrogen Leaders, now a part of S&P Global. I'm Vaughan Clark-Williams, Senior Conference Producer. I'm joined here with Gareth Richardson, Low Carbon Technology Lead at AtkinsRéalis. So Gareth, just to start off, would you be okay giving a bit of background to AtkinsRéalis, some of the work you do around hydrogen?
Yeah, sure. So AtkinsRéalis is a global engineering services company. We've got something like 40,000 people globally, supporting all kinds of industries from hospitals through to hydrogen projects, airports, and we even have our own nuclear reactor design and power plants in Canada and around the globe, actually. We're in the hydrogen space. We're doing lots of different projects from salt cavern storage in the UK and Germany to same aviation fuel facilities. We're doing some of the designs, early stage designs for those, all the way through to technology development for working for Ceres, which I saw my presentation earlier yesterday. So we're doing some really interesting stuff across the patch on that, and we can support projects from the end to end, from early feasibility all the way through to feed, and then supporting through into the construction phases as well.
Okay, thank you. And that's a wide range of projects. You mentioned CCS, you mentioned working with Ceres, who are electrolyzer provider as well. Where do you see hydrogen succeeding, particularly in those end-use categories?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic where it's going to succeed. I mean, we had Michael Liebreich with his hydrogen ladder, and he's been quite right about a number of those. I think for me, and I pretty much said this from the start when I started working in hydrogen about 3 years ago, that it's going to be industry where hydrogen is currently used that's going to be the main driver for the uptake of clean hydrogen. The key bit is getting the price down. I mean, if we look at Germany at the moment, how they're trying to shift away from, this German steelmakers are looking at shifting away from using green hydrogen. They're looking to move to either just straight out natural gas or importing hot briquette iron from a country where there is low cost renewables or low cost natural gas and the carbon capture capability. So that market shifting like that has been, a lot of people have been thinking about it, saying that industries are going to shift around to where there's power. Another interesting part about it is how power constrained Europe is and the US is now, with the growth of data centers, with the growth of manufacturing. It's much harder to get those grid connections for electrolyzers. It's much harder. Prices are going up for the cost of the electricity, and electricity makes up 60 to 70% of the cost. It probably even potentially higher in Europe of the hydrogen. So it's very difficult to make some of those projects competitive. I mean, there's ways to do it. We can help, like the Ceres project that we did. We were able to get really quite good efficiencies on that, and we'll keep doing that. We'll get the efficiencies down as far as you can, but there are thermodynamic limits. So you've got to get your cost of electricity down to make green hydrogen work in those industries. But yeah, so steel is an interesting one, but where it happens will be different. Sustainable aviation fuel, that's another interesting topic for hydrogen. We were discussing this before, weren't we, about how going direct from CO2 and sort of reverse burning it is a very energy intensive process. So what you're trying to look for is, well, can I get a biological feedstock and put most of the energy in using that, and then add in the green hydrogen for the upgrading, or the blue hydrogen for the upgrading of those products. I think that's where I think it's going to be used. SAF, steel, ammonia, obviously, for fertilizer. It's a shame that one of the projects in Pacific Northwest hub that we run, the Atlas Agro project there, because I thought that was one of the really great projects on pause at the moment. But that's understandable. I mean, if you've probably listened to a lot of people around this conference with the tariffs coming in, there's a lot of cost uncertainty in the projects. So that's also going to have a shift as to what industries are able to do and where those projects are going to be as well.
Okay, yeah, and we did have a short discussion earlier as well, and we were sort of discussing around those off-take markets in particular. One we brought up was the heavy-duty mobility sector, and the sort of development of technologies outside of hydrogen and how that can sort of affect the use of hydrogen in those, in the future, spanning across several years. So what do you think about technology risk and how that could affect, hydrogen's use in different end sectors such as SAF and mobility, steel?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, that, because I think sometimes when the studies are done for these topics, they maybe don't pick the right time frame to look at it. They might be looking like 2 or 3 years ago. You might have, if I used a fixed time frame for where battery technology was and compared in that moment where it was, you would probably look at hydrogen trucks and go, well, yeah, maybe they still do have a place to play in the hydrogen trucking market. But with the advances in battery technology and the speed at which it was, if that was used And if the time frame of say 5 or 10 years was used for that technology assessment, you would go, well, actually battery technology is going to be extremely competitive, and there's a much higher technology risk to those HGVs. And we saw this play out in the car market. Car market's pretty much gone. There's virtually no one in that space, and it's almost going that way with trucking as well. I think it's only Hyundai, potentially one of the last hydrogen trucking companies left at the moment. Most of the others have exited. So yeah, you've got to look at longer term view on that. We do this in airports as well. So we get quite often asked by airports, they've got a long-term planning, 10-year, 15-year time horizon, and they're looking at it, and they're looking, well, do we need to put hydrogen production on site? Do we need to make zero innovation fuel on site? Do we need to get new power sources to electrify? And you've got to have a bit of a crystal ball look at those kind of things. I mean, you're not going to get it right. And as a consultant, we just have to put the assumptions in, look at it, and try and basically take it a little bit more back to the basics. What are the thermodynamics telling us about where these technologies could go? What's the real limit on them? And see how that can influence what the energy makeup might be for an airport or a port and those type of things.
Okay, and when we look at hydrogen, obviously there's a spectrum, there's the colours, and you mentioned the power prices and how that can affect the overall cost of hydrogen in the end. Where do we see green hydrogen, especially in a new political climate, new administration here in the US, and also a new political climate in Europe? So what's the future for green hydrogen?
Yeah, so I mean, you got to find someone that's going to pay for it, right? I mean, green hydrogen isn't coming down in price as quickly as people would want. I mean, the new electrolyzer technologies are coming through, which will help reduce it. But there are places where people are paying high amounts for the hydrogen delivered, especially if it's delivered in compressed gas form. You could be talking in the $20 or more range for that. And if you're looking at, some people are even getting liquid hydrogen delivered because they can't keep the storage on site, or there are safety constraints around having that much hydrogen in that place. So there are places like that where they're paying high amounts now, and putting an electrolyzer on site could significantly reduce their costs. Now, they might only be in the sort of 5 megawatt range, maybe 10 megawatts. So they are small scale projects, but they are projects that could get to FID much quicker than, say, 100, 200 megawatt projects, which are struggling with the price and their end offtake movements.
So we've discussed green hydrogen already. And there's obviously the emerging market of SAF, which is becoming a bit more prevalent. Where do you see SAF going? Where do you think the projects will reach FID? Do you think that will be in the next 5 to 10 years, etc.?
Well, I think a lot of SAF projects are going to be coming online, especially in Europe, where there's the mandates. I think in the UK it's about 2%. They're asking for blending now. That will drive a lot of projects to do that. And as I mentioned before, biological sources are probably going to be some of the early ones for that. But they always need a bit of, well, not always, but mostly need a bit of hydrogen upgrading, depending on what the biological source is. So I think we'll see a big uptick in SAF production over the next 5 to 10 years, just to supply that mandated markets in Europe. I mean, we've done a lot of studies for a number of our clients in this, and looking at the different pathways to do it, and we really see that the alcohol to jet is a good pathway. It's one of the lower energy consumption ones, but finding the right biological sources for that is a key part of it. So yeah, it's an interesting market. I think it's going to develop quickly over the next 5 years, and we really look forward to being involved in those projects as well.
Okay, brilliant. And just one final question. We've spoke about green, we've spoke about SAF. CCUS, blue hydrogen, do you feel that has a bit of a stronger place in the market now, given the new climate that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, the US, with its very low-cost gas and its high potential for CCS, is definitely an area that was always going to be a very strong blue hydrogen country. In the UK, the CCS hubs are now progressing. You've got the blue hydrogen being produced there as well. So I think a lot of the projects in the larger projects will be blue hydrogen ones in the near term. And it will be a little bit longer before I think we start to see really true 100, 500 megawatt scale green hydrogen projects. And it'll be interesting to see if any of those happen in Europe. There'll have to be some decent sized subsidies for them, but that's the way the market is and electricity is at the moment. So blue hydrogen, I think, is going to be one of the early movers for large scale.
Okay, brilliant. Well, yeah, thank you for your time. Appreciate you coming, and hopefully have a great rest of your event.